Okay, welcome everybody to Pizza Club's Pizza Industry Convos. I'm Michael Fox from Pizza Club and the Beach. I am joined tonight by my very special guests, Paulie G and Mrs. Paulie G, Mary Ed G. How's it going, guys? Welcome to Pizza Club.
Well, how are you?
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to chat. We got a lot of great things to talk about. You have a new book out and all things pizza to talk about. For those who aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about who you are.
We opened up our pizzeria in 2010, a wood-fired pizzeria. I was a career change guy, and Mr. G continued working while we got the restaurant going. She did that for a while, and now she's full-time retirement with me. This is like our retirement. And we started with one location. I thought it would always be one location, but I felt that I owed it to my friends and family who were my investors to go beyond that. And we've gone beyond that, and we hope to continue to go beyond that. I like to help other people who are like me, career change people, open up their own spot. And Mrs. G here, her lifelong dream, not lifelong dream, ever since this started, was to publish a book about us. And she has succeeded.
I love it.
A lot of time and effort.
Yeah, I wanted to talk all about the book. I'm excited to get into that and how this came to be. So, right now, you currently have how many total restaurants throughout the US?
We have a wood-fired place in Greenpoint and a slice shop in Greenpoint. We have a slice shop in Philly. We're opening up one in Gowanus this summer. And in Chicago, we have 3 locations, a wood-fired, a slice shop, and a hybrid. And those are licensed.
And also a catering company.
And a catering company, right? And we have a wood-fired spot. And that's a bit of a hybrid as well in Columbus, Ohio. Looking to help other people open more.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about the book for a little bit. This has been a project, I guess, in the works for a long time. Tell us how the book came to be and how this subject got broached to do not just a recipe book for pizza, but also it's a lot of stories from your world. Was it something that you've been writing? How the idea came to fruition? I'm curious.
Well, ever since we opened, so many people came into the shop from all across the country and the world. Like we were getting recognized in publications in other countries. People would come and say, "Oh, we saw you in a tour guide book in Japan," whatever. Like, really? Like, we didn't submit anything there. It just kind of like started happening. It just, from the minute we opened, there was a lot of frenzy about it. And it never really died down. Thank goodness, maybe a little bit during the pandemic, but it never really died down, the excitement of the business. And people would just come in and ask me questions all the time and ask Paulie questions like, how'd you do it? Why'd you do it? What was your impetus for doing it? Like they felt like a lot of times people, I thought, felt it was a very inspiring story because so many people then would come back and say, "Oh, you inspired me to do this or that." And Paulie would always say, that's one thing he would always retort with,
No, they would say, "Oh, you
Right.
inspired me," but so I always said, "Well, what did I inspire you to do?" A lot of times, I didn't inspire them to do anything.
But with that said, there were a number of people that were inspired, and a number of them went out on their own, not under our umbrella, and we're not making a dollar from them, and we really don't care. It's just that we had the pleasure of having their friendship. They either worked with us or collaborated with us on something, and they went out on their own. And, we've always supported those people. And I mean, fortunately, we have, people from all across the country that keep in touch with us all the time. Former employees will call us and say, "Oh, we're in the city, you want to come out and have pizza with us or whatever." So we've just I feel like we built a very like large community of pizza enthusiasts, but also just other things as well.
And how did that lead to a book?
Well, it led to a book because like I say, so many people kept asking us questions about it. And I just really felt like it was a story that we should tell and that might inspire somebody else. And it doesn't have to be pizza necessarily. Okay. But another thing that maybe you've thought about most of your life and you had a passion for, but for whatever reason, you weren't able to do that at that particular time in your life. I think people were very enamored with the story because we were a bit older getting started. I mean, I think that was a big part of it, a very big. Would you agree? I mean,
Absolutely.
a lot of people were like, "Wow, Paulie was 56 when he decided to leave the corporate world and, go out on this new venture, which we were really not sure about. And I laugh now because I ran across a lot of our documents recently. And, he had like this little tiny like business plan, like in 2008 or 2009 or whatever. And when I look at it, it's almost like ridiculous. Like there were no pictures in there. There were some pictures, but it wasn't like something you would see today. Like, you know what I mean? Like that somebody would present to somebody. It was very amateurish. It wasn't like professional looking per se. I mean, it was enough.
And that was important. I wanted other people to see that. Even before Marianne started thinking about doing the book, I wanted people to see that they could do what I did. I mean, I was suffering in the corporate world. I want to give other people hope that, if there's something else that they could do that they love, they should do it. And the book enables that to get out there even more now. But it was never to be a cookbook, but to get published. I like to say a publishing company is like a hammer. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And when you're a publishing company dealing with food, everything looks like a cookbook. So it evolved into this great cookbook. She had some great ideas about putting other people's recipes in there. The recipes because this all started when I used to cook at home. I still do, not as much as before. And I had all these recipes. We had them printed up. Our late dear friend laminated them for us. Then Marianne got the idea of getting recipes from our other locations and from our colleagues, who have other shops. And that's how it evolved into what it is now.
Well, I feel like that was a big part of the whole business for us. It was working with other people, and we were sort of in a place in Brooklyn at a really great time where, out the neighborhood we went into was not really fully developed yet. And, we were brand new there, but there were also a lot of new businesses starting out, like Mike's Hot Honey and Van Leeuwen and Gotham Greens and like just so many other like things that were percolating at the same time. There was like a lot of synergy in the neighborhood, including the two wonderful brothers that we met were just starting out that ended up building out our space. And since then, they went on to do, many other restaurants and bars, but we were like one of their first projects. So there was just something about that time and being in that place. Like, I think everything in life, too, was also like timing. I mean, I had thought about the book for so many years, but, and I was frustrated at times because it wasn't really happening. But I think the key is also if you have something in your heart and you have an instinct for it, it may not be the right timing at that particular time. But if you're patient and you keep making steps in that way, it eventually will come to fruition. And I saw that with the book. I mean, I really did. It kind of hit me over the head when we finally, got an offer. But the thing was, we were very cautious about that. And I know he wasn't particular because we didn't want them to make it into something that we weren't. Like, I feel like we don't really fit into even the real pizza mold. And that's nothing against anybody else, but we don't, we're not into the competition part of it. We're not into, what I mean? We're just not into that. Like everybody that we've met in the community is a colleague and we support them. We're not as technical about everything. I mean, I feel like that was one of my concerns with the book, because we're not real like purists as far as other people. And like, to have to come up with flour recipes and get them in there correctly and then also pare it down for home use because we were going from a lot of commercial recipes. That was challenging too because we want to make sure that if somebody does go to make something, it's going to turn out right.
Well, the publishers made sure of that too. They tested everything out, and fortunately, they didn't have to retest many times. But there were a couple of items that we had to redo. But we're just waiting for the calls to come into us and say, "Listen, I tried this and it ain't working."
No going back. It's in print now.
That's it.
That's great. I'm sure you're going to get great feedback on the recipes. So in many ways, this is a book that you've been kind of percolating on for a long time. I mean, these are stories that
When
you've
we
had.
we were still living in New Jersey before we, permanently moved back to New York. It had been a long time. And we were commuting back and forth for like 8 years all the time. And, and we finally sold our house and everything. And then really that's when it kind of things started happening with the book then. It just kind of coincided with everything. And I always felt like I kind of knew we had to be back in New York full time for it to happen. I just felt that. We grew up in Brooklyn. That was like what I was feeling. And luckily, one night in the restaurant, we always used to talk to people a lot. We still do when we're there. Um, I spoke to this woman, said, "Oh, my friend is, an agent at the David Black Agency in New York. You really should, let me put her in touch with you, and that's how it started. Like a lot of our stories really started in the restaurant, just talking to other people. It wasn't like any special happening or anything. It was just, communicating and making connections. And I guess, I guess we're pretty good at networking. I mean, I think that's part of it too. And that's really what business is.
Well, I
You
mean,
know,
we're social people. We like to make new friends. We have wonderful friends, the same age as us, and they make new friends as well, but it's in a tighter circle in terms of demographics. And we just have this great opportunity to meet people from all walks of life and all ages in the restaurant. It's been a godsend for us. It's really enhanced our lives, really.
That's great. I love to talk a little bit about the process for how you decided what to include, what not to include. I mean, there was testing, like you mentioned, from the publisher after.
I mean, it basically started with, they said, they wanted us to have about 100 recipes. And, our menus, obviously, especially in Greenpoint, are not really extensive. We had like soup, salads, and pizza, basically. So, we also wanted to showcase sort of like his home recipes. Like, I didn't want it to just be a book about pizza. I mean, don't forget, it's definitely pizza centric, but I wanted it to have other elements because we're not just about pizza. It's just like we embrace like a lot of different, we love different restaurants and different food and supporting, all kinds of pizza, not just going for pizza,
And music.
and music. And that was sort of, I don't know where that came, but we ended up for each chapter coming up, Paulie came up with like a playlist of songs like sort of related to that chapter. So the idea was like me, especially, I wanted it to be different. I didn't want it to be just like, I don't want to say another cookbook because there are great books out there. I'm not demeaning anybody, but I wanted it to be different, and I thought it was great the way initially it might have been our co-writer, Sarah Zorn, who said, it would be good to like do your stories, but that you were talking to each other. And I've had so many, which we did, and I've had so many people who got the book already say, "Oh wow, it sounds just like you. It sounds like just like you talk at school." And like people have really enjoyed that. I wanted it to be sort of light, because we like to have fun too, you know. And so there were a lot of elements that I wanted to be in there that were different than just giving people recipes, And I feel like they were very good about working with us, the agency and the publishing company, like to kind of do it the way we wanted. I mean, there were a couple of things I had to push back on, but and I think we got our way, with a few things. But also in the book, if anybody's getting it or hasn't seen it yet, we have a pizza hit list in the back of the book, which basically, mentions at least 100 pizzerias in the country, and out of the country that, we're either friends with them or they worked for us and went and opened their own place or whatever. Like I feel like all their stories also are sort of interwoven with ours in a sense. Being in the pizza community, if you're in it any shape or form, it is a community. And I feel like most people in that community, I feel like it's very different. Both of us would say it than any other industry or organization we've been in. And I've been in nonprofit, I've been in corporate, I've been in the educational world. He's also been in the corporate world. And I feel like there's nothing really that compares to it on any level, the amount of support that you see people give each other. And I think that all stems from the fact that it's just a very social business and everything is about food, and especially pizzas, a very communal food that's shared. So I think that all is encompassed in the book.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the pizza community is like no other food community that I've ever seen. It's very special, and the relationships I know that you guys have built over the years is important to not just your business, but you've helped a lot of other businesses along the way, which is great. So that's really great and special. And I want to also talk a little bit about your partnership with your co-writer, Sarah Zorn. So, like, what is that process like? Also, curious too for other you know people who are traditionally book authors like yourselves who haven't done this before. What is it like partnering with the co-author and putting together all your ideas and try to keep your voice present in the process, right? Because it has to sound like you, and it sounds like you've succeeded at doing that. But I'm just curious what that was like.
Well, basically, we knew Sarah Zorn before because she was the first person. She was writing for the Brooklyn paper the year that Mike's Hot Honey was created. And she was the first person, I believe, to break the news about him in the Brooklyn paper. I mean, after we signed with her, she sent me the article, and I had kind of forgotten about that. But when she was presented to us as a co writer, it was the only person my agent could find at the time. All her other writers were busy. And I felt like, yeah, we could write it, but we're so busy with businesses and everything else. We certainly did write. I edited, we did a lot of Zoom calls with her, answering questions, going through things. I mean, it was quite a process. It was very detailed for us as well. But she was able to kind of pull everything together. And she knew us also from before. So that was sort of like a bonus, like she came into the picture. And when the agent called up and said, she was available. And I'm like, wait a minute, I know her. We were in her Brooklyn Chef Table book. That was her first book that was published. Since then, she's gone on to do many other books, and she was nominated, I guess, last year for 2 James Beard Awards. So it was all like perfect timing. And she was great. I mean, it was a lot of work. It was just, going through editing and drafts, and it took a lot of time.
What are you hoping that people take away from the book?
I would hope the reason that we did it, or I don't know about him, but I feel like, is I just wanted to inspire people. Just because you're in your 50s, 60s, or whatever, I'm in my 60s, he's pushing 70 or stuff.
I'm fast.
But, it doesn't mean you have to stop. And I think a lot of people stop and they forget about what maybe they thought they were going to do before, because life gets in the way, and, you get busy, or you have a family, or even if you don't, you have bills to pay, or, whatever it is. And, you forget about all those things. And we were lucky at the time that we got into the business with that. We didn't have a lot of like constraints as far as people needing us anymore, because both our sons were grown and our parents were all gone. They've been gone for many years. And, we weren't juggling all of that. Like a lot of my friends at this age, too, are still dealing with that. And we did all that for them years ago. We miss them terribly. Believe me, we wish they were here to see anything of this. It's really, sometimes it's very hard. I always remember my husband saying from the very beginning, oh, what I would give to just see my father walk through the door. Because, our parents grew up during the Depression, and, none of them had it easy, and they struggled. They were pretty much blue collar workers. And, just to see us doing this now, I can't even imagine like what they would think. But I also say, we have them with us in spirit, and we have things in both our places in Brooklyn from them. We have various things of theirs in there, so, right.
Yeah. But what I wanted out of the book more than anything was for Marianne to accomplish what she wanted to accomplish, because we were accomplishing everything I did. I found the perfect, vocation for me. And I wanted to make sure she was happy and she wasn't just supporting me. And hopefully I did that. She loves to, she loves to help other people, and she's a charity arm, and she's gotten an opportunity to do a lot of that. But she wanted to tell our story. And more than anything, I wanted her to be able to succeed at that. And I look at the book now. Boy, I'm just so happy that it came out. I don't know if other people are going to think how good it came out, but I think it's wonderful. Really, just amazed at looking at that. It wasn't even what I was envisioning. You I talked about a photographer. I said, we have to get photographs that look like our restaurant, our wood-fired restaurant. And I didn't understand that that's just not the way it works in the cookbook world. But she kept on focused on what they thought was best instead of what I wanted. And she was right. And she got this beautiful book. So more than anything, I'm happy about that. And residually, again, I always want to show other people what they could do if they believe in themselves. And I want to be an example for others. I was able to accomplish what I did and take the chance that I did because I saw that other people in similar circumstances were able to do that. My greatest example is always Mark Iacano. He was in construction. He never made pizza in his life. And when he put his mind to it, within a short period of time, he opened up, and a couple of weeks later, he was the most popular pizzeria in the city. And, he was an example to me. You need to believe that you can do something. And I want to be an example for others by people looking at that book. Hopefully they're going to get that. I know they will get it.
That's awesome. Congratulations. It's really exciting to see come to fruition. And I think we should switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about pizza. I know you have shops all over the country, as you talked about earlier. And I know you mentioned you guys are expanding to Gowanus. Talk a little bit about the empire that which you built and where sort of things are headed. Do you envision post the book now being out, kind of taking it to the next level? What's next? Where do you sort of see the business going in the future?
We're focusing now on slice shops. I think it's a much better model. I have to, we want to help other people open up shops. And to do that, it has to be an affordable model. And, the pizza that we serve in the wood fired places are best served right out of the oven. So if you take the takeout and delivery out of the equation, it's more difficult to succeed. So we're really focused on the slice shops. And I think we came up with a good formula in, like a 50-year-old slice shop. We serve pizza the way it was served 50 years ago. We don't have a lot of, very artisanal topping combinations. And we think that touches people. You go in, the music, the atmosphere, and the food are all from 50, 60 years ago. And we want to do more of that wherever anybody is who wants to escape what they're doing because they don't like it and they like pizza more. And no matter where that is. So if you say, where do you want to expand to? I want to expand to where there's somebody who's going to have enough of a dream and enough motivation, to build it.
It's great. And question for both of you too. Like, do you feel that outside of New York, being New Yorkers here, we understand the slice culture, but do you feel like outside of the New York area, they get it as much? Are they starting to get it? I feel like pies is more of a thing in other cities and places, right? But like
Philly,
you brought it to Philly, so
Philly, it's doing very well in Philly. So I think it's just a matter of that being accepted. I see other places now, some places that look like, they went into my shop and took a bunch of photos and, plastered the photos up on the wall in Cleveland and other places. It's really taking hold. So that is expanding. It has to be in the right place though. You can't just have a slice shop anywhere because you have to have foot traffic and, but people get that, and they wanna see what it was like to get a New York slice.
something special about that. Any other thoughts, Mariana?
Yeah, we do get a lot of tourists. We always did actually from the very beginning. And, we've been on so many like lists, top 25 in New York, this, that, and the other thing. And we don't really get too wrapped up in that. I mean, it's great to be on those lists, but we also like a lot of other styles of pizza and we support other people. And, Paulie's thing has always been, that's for you to say mine is good, not for me to say. Like, like the famous Rays in New York, like they have famous on the sign, and that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, that's not for us to say. If you want to come in and, write a review and it's good, that's great. But we would never, ever solicit people for reviews. Like, there's just certain things we never did and will still not do.
And in terms of the tourists, um, I kind of learned the hard way that the reason we do well in New York is because, when people come to New York, that's one of the things that I have to get New York pizza, and that's what you don't get in other parts of the country. People, people go to other cities, they go in there for different things. So New York is very special.
And one question, thinking about the menu, do you constantly think, okay, do we want to introduce new menu items in this process of writing the book? Thinking about like, wow, it'd be really great to add this to our menu, or now is the time to try something new. I don't know. Has that process spurred those thoughts?
Not in the slice shop. In the wood
Okay.
fired, yes. I'm always looking for, different topping combinations, sweet and savory. But in the slice shop, it's a classic offering, right? So you don't want to get too far out. Now, obviously, we did the Hellboy. You didn't get a Hellboy 50 years ago, but that was something that was so successful, so popular that we had to bring it over. I didn't even want to put a vodka slice on the menu because 50 years ago, there was no vodka slice. But it's just, people really like it. And I was challenged to come up with a good one. I think we did. And, so that's what changes. Just with the slice shop, it's very, it's very narrow. And I don't see it getting much more now. I'm constantly playing now to improve upon those things that we're now offering in terms of, the process. But other than that, I'm keeping it focused.
Well, quite frankly, I'm going to interject about the vodka slice because probably the only reason we ended up putting it on the menu there at the slice shop is because our son wanted to do it. He's running Paulie Gee Soul City Slice Shop, and he wanted to do it. I think because people were looking for that, and it went really well. He kept telling us about it, and we just said, well, we'll try it in Greenpoint too. So it's kind of nice, having other people in other places that you could kind of bounce things off also.
Well, that's an interesting point because you just made me think about Chicago. And with Derek, you guys have Detroit's there. And when we think of a New York slice shop, there's sort of the certain things that fit that mold, right? But now you bring a New York slice shop to Chicago or to Ohio or Philly. It's like, well, okay, do we change things for the local culture?
You do that. Particularly in Chicago, it's different than New York. They have they have different offerings than we do. So yes, okay. When we were in New Orleans, we did a little bit of that, but we basically stuck with the classics. But you have to give people, these other places their own by my friends, okay? In order for them to feel like owners, I can't dictate everything that they do. They have to have autonomy, and I have to give them that. Sometimes it's difficult for me to deal with because they do things that perhaps, I wouldn't do. I wish they wouldn't do. But sometimes I was wrong about that. And you mentioned the Detroit. That was the perfect example. When we first opened, Derek really wanted to do in
Derek
Chicago,
Town.
really wanted to do a Detroit style pizza. And I said, look, just focus on getting this right. You can worry about that later. But he was adamant about it, and he did it. And I was dead wrong. I mean, that thing took off. And not only did he do it, he did it very well. So that autonomy is important. It's a double-edged sword for me, but sometimes I got to hold my breath. But people have to feel like it's their menu as well as ours.
Yeah, at first when I heard about how there was like different versions in different cities, it seemed like, well, is it still the Paulie G brand, right? Is it the same thing? But I see now why you had to create some flexibility in that model because, like you said, it gives them ownership. It makes it their own, and I think the localization too is part of that, perhaps. And you even let your son do it in Philly, so that that speaks to that.
My son is a different story. Okay, no matter what I want, he's going to do what he wants.
Right, sure. We just coming off a pizza expo a few weeks ago, kind of bringing the pizza community together and seeing old friends and new friends in your conversations with other folks in the business. Like, what has inspired you? What that experience was like for you going to expo?
My pizza expo, and I'll let Marianne speak for her experience, but mine is very narrowly focused. Okay, I go there to see old friends that I only get to see once a year, make new friends, and encourage people to do what I did because I'm a very, very lucky man that I got to live my best life, and I want other people to know that they should not be afraid to walk through that wall of fear and and do what they want to do. And I'm an example of that. And when I see people, I ask them, where's your shop? What do you plan on doing? Yada yada yada. And that's what I do. I don't get into the technical stuff very much at all. And it's just social for me. And Marianne, I think, she goes to the pool. She likes the pool. Okay.
Well, I enjoy the fact that they also have some charitable, booths there now, which I'm not sure that they always did that in the past, but specifically like Slice Out Hunger, and I'm a big supporter of them. And, they usually have a great booth every year where we put on temporary tattoos for people and introduce people to the program if they're not familiar with it, and hopefully get them to sign up to have deliveries of pizzas to, homeless shelters or food banks or what have you. And so I've always felt that that was more sort of my mission with the business, was to do the charitable arm of it. That's what I always really wanted, and I've done a lot of that, and I've really enjoyed that. But I'm also happy to see the movement for the women in pizza that Alex started, Alex, and it seems to be getting a lot of momentum. And there's a lot of great ladies that have gotten involved that are opening their own places. And I went to the event that they had this year, and I'll tell you, I went to the maybe the one prior, but this one was huge. It seems like every year there's like more and more people coming and supporting that, and more women opening places. So that's a great thing, because basically it was a very male centric industry, for years. And so that's good to see.
I'm wearing my Audrey Jane hat right
Very
here.
happy about that. But basically, we really we like to go, as he was saying, to talk to people, and you see people that maybe not necessarily you haven't seen in a year, and they've done something else, or they've added another item or another location, or, you just kind of meet people that maybe you had gotten friends with on Instagram, and then you meet them there for the first time. And it's a lot of fun to build this community, and, say, well, if you're in New York, look us up, come see us, we'll meet you at the shop. Like for us, we really kind of take it like to another level. I don't know that everybody in this business runs it like we do, but we really take the social part of it like to a very high level, because we're very people centric people. Not everybody really wants that, and people, I don't know that everybody gets us, but we really enjoy that part of it. Like, I love the pizza too. Don't get me wrong. I love pizza. But I feel like for me, and especially with the book too, pizza was just sort of a vehicle for me, but it worked out, and it always felt right, because we also, like, growing up in New York. I mean, that was such a main food for us, like even just growing up, because you always had a shop almost at every corner. I mean, they always ask you on podcasts and different things, when was your first slice, whatever. And I mean, I remember leaving grammar school and going 2 blocks away to have pizza for lunch at this bakery. It was like an Italian bakery at the time. And that's what you had, like a pan pizza. And that's what I did at lunchtime. So, like, we've always had pizza in our life, unlike maybe other places in the country. That was just every Friday night, we had pizza. I mean, you would probably say the same thing. Like, that's what we did.
We used to go at lunchtime, 2 slices and a soda for 40 cents.
That's awesome. Yeah, true, because pizza is a big part of the New York culture. This is what we grew up with. Going back to what you said about Pizza Expo, being everybody, it's not for the shy. I can see how you two thrive there always, because it's a very social atmosphere. It's also very overwhelming, right? Like, you walk into that floor and there's 10 million things going on at once, and there's booths and there's demos, right? And it's a lot. But I was curious to talk more about some of the people that you meet through social media. Do you guys get contacted a lot through DMs, and what's that experience like? And I've had this experience getting to meet people in person I've talked to through Clubhouse or just online. Tell me a little bit about those relationships that you've built online and how they reach out to you, because I know you guys are both very active on social.
I get a lot of people reaching out in DM. Sometimes it's just, let's collaborate. Some of these collaborations and nonsense. There are a lot of people that reach out. They want to, they want to visit the shop, or they want to do something that we've done. And, I forget about these people sometimes until I meet them. It's like, one great example was somebody reached out to us on Instagram, and they came to New York. They were from Winchester, England, right? They came and they sat down, they talked, they asked me questions, and they went on their way. I totally forgot about them. And then back in September, this post came out that had me in it, them interviewing me. I barely remembered that. But these people, that we wound up receiving an award from 50 Top Pizza, who are part of the Artisan Pizza Chains Awards. When we showed up, they saw, I put out a post showing that I was in London. The awards were in London this past year. They reached out to me. They said, "You're going to come see my shop." I had forgotten who they were or what they did. And then I looked, I started looking at my Instagram. I said, "Oh my God, I remember them now." They opened up a New York style slice shop in Winchester, and they credited me with inspiring them. And I got on the train. They went and saw some Queenie thing.
We went to a museum.
They went to some museum or something. And I got on a train from London to go to Winchester, which was a great experience. I met these people, and it was like just wonderful. And this is just through them DMing me. And while we were there, we went to a really great restaurant there called Fallow. And I'm sitting there, and somebody taps me on the shoulder, introduces himself, and asks, actually, he didn't ask. He knew who I was, and said that because of a video of me that he saw on YouTube 10 years ago, he opened up a pizzeria. He was doing something else. And this was all
in Wales.
In Wales. Yeah. This was all, based on him seeing me. And so, people talk about my legacy. And, I didn't realize that things that I do are now having an impact in other parts of life, and this guy's a perfect example. Was I the only reason that he opened up a shop? No, but, it encouraged him. And, so this is all through social media. Social media, it could be, a little crazy too. And, I try to keep it focused on the pizza. But if you look at I have a couple of accounts. I have a Slice Shop account now. But if you look at my one, just Paulie Gee, it's basically a diary of my life. I try to scale that back a little bit. I'm not going to put something there. I went to a Yankee game. But, there are other things I'm doing besides serving a slice of pizza that you'll find in there. So you'll find a lot of the cookbook in there right now.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, definitely. That's great. I know you're very active and both of you on socials. It's good to hear about the stories about like connecting with people because I think a lot of people are looking for that connection through social. They see what you're doing and it's a great way to kind of connect with other pizzeria shop owners and people that are aspiring to be in business. So that's
It's
really
interesting too. People, when they approach me, you can say that they feel like they know me.
right.
It's a very, it's very endearing.
That's great. I love that. Well, we're kind of getting to the end here. Is there anything else you want to add before we start to wrap up here or anything we should look out for coming up?
I don't know about him, but I don't think we have any real specific plans for anything. It's just the way it's been for 15 years. I mean, it's not really that we planned all this to happen. It's just been evolving. And I keep saying to people, we have no idea what we're doing, but we just keep doing it. And I mean that literally. I mean, we're not kidding. He probably would say the same thing. It's just been since we came out, since we opened, really. I mean, luckily, I feel like, we haven't really come up for air because it's just been the response from the community and people coming out to support us and help us. And it's really been very humbling. I mean, and that was sort of the reason for me with the book too, is I wanted as many people as possible that I could acknowledge in there. It was very hard to do that. I mean, my biggest fear is that I left somebody out, but we really tried as much as possible to, cite people in there if we did a recipe with them or then they worked with us and went on to another place or whatever. We always wish everybody well. I mean, we just really want to be here to support people is really, I feel like our main role. Obviously, we have to have a good product and, pay bills and have a business. But I really think both of us feel our main goal is really to encourage other people and support them along the way if there's anything we can possibly help with.
And do it in a way that makes yourself happy. I don't run a business on a pizzeria blueprint. I do what that works for me. If there's something that I don't like doing, I'm not going to do it. It may cost me something, or maybe not. Maybe because I'm doing it the way I like it. It's more effective and I'm better at it. And you just gotta, do what's, don't make it a job. It hasn't ever been a job for me. And the greatest thing, and again, I'm going to encourage people, go out there and, when you're working for somebody else, you're working for somebody else's dreams. You should go out there and do what you love. Start your own business. And, maybe you were meant to be the boss and not have a boss. You should find out what that's like. Okay, don't be afraid of it.
I love it. Marianne, Paulie, I thank you guys both so much for your time. Appreciate you for being here on Pizza Club. I hope to see you guys again soon. And I just wanted to congratulate you again with the book. So
Thank you
that,
so much.
Thank you very much for having us.
and for everyone else watching, make sure to like and subscribe here to the Pizza Club channel to get more great content like this. We'll see you again next time on Pizza Industry Convos, part of the Pizza Club Network. Take care. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.